Like a solar panel, the chameleon presents as much surface as possible to the sun and absorbs heat. On top of the chameleon's head, just under the skin, is a light-sensitive organ, a third eye. It's called the pineal eye and helps pass information to the brain about the intensity and duration of sunlight. Vital information that affects the timing of hibernation and mating. The two sides of a chameleon may look quite different. Here the left is dark, but the right side facing the sun has become almost white to reflect the sun and prevent overheating. As temperatures change, the chameleon constantly adjusts its coloration. In the heat of midday, it may become a whiter shade of pale all over to maintain its cool, and remains still in whatever shade is available. Deserts can be dangerously short on shade as well as food and drink. And yet hundreds of the world's amazing lizards survive on the burning sand. This desert lizard is just cooling his feet. When he can't take the heat anymore, he'll dive into the cool of a dune. To us, the cool of the sea might seem a comfortable place on an equatorial island. But for the marine iguanas of the Galapagos, the sea is a cold and risky necessity. They're descendants of South American land-dwelling iguanas, castaways that floated in on rafts of drifting vegetation. The only food for them here is seaweed, located offshore, in waters both cold and rough. Eating is not a simple task. To feed underwater, the iguanas must use their claws as anchors, hold their breath for as long as 20 minutes, and maintain enough heat in their bodies to keep themselves going. Loss of heat is the main threat to survival. Stay too long, become too cold and weak, and run the risk of being caught by a Galapagos sea lion, whose favorite game is catching iguanas. It's all in the timing. They must eat enough to sustain them for the day, yet leave themselves enough energy to swim the gauntlet and climb back onto the rocks, where they will sunbathe to regain their strength. Excess salt is snorted out, and everyone settles down to getting warm enough to digest their food. As ancient castaways, these iguanas adapted to their island life very well. They're lizards that know when to come in from the cold. For lizards, getting a grip means hanging on to trees and rocks. A three-horned chameleon has divided claws unique to chameleons. 3 toes on one side, 2 on the other, ideal on these thin branches. An alternative is having feet like tendrils, slender toes that this green iguana uses to clamber around trees in Central America. But the greatest feat is pulled off by some of the geckos. How does this tokay gecko, with its curious upturning toes, walk upside down on trees, ceilings, and windows? Each foot has claws and special pads, and it's the pads that hold the secret of walking up the wall. They're covered in millions of tiny hairs. The hairs are capable of hooking on to the slightest irregularity, even on glass. Each hair carries a tiny charge of static electricity that helps a gecko get a grip. Some lizards need to sprint. This agama will have to dash for cover if the world's fastest mammal gets seriously playful. And in Australia, this frilled lizard can scare off a would-be predator. The frills make it look bigger. It's a bluff, but it's a bluff that works. Lovington, New Mexico specializes in lizards that can run.
Today is the world's greatest lizard race, and it's part of our 4th of July celebration here in Lovington, New Mexico. Tell you what, guys, let's check that fence line right over there. It's the last chance to catch these lizards today, so let's see if we can get something. The World's Greatest Lizard Race has been a really exciting event that we've held every year. A lot of anticipation to it. The kids, you'll see them around town with buckets and mops and going through the lots, trying to find a lizard. So yeah, there's a lot of excitement into the lizard race.
They first started catching mountain boomers, whiptails, and skinks for the bicentennial celebration race in 1976. And it's no easier now than it was then. The tail was shed to distract the pursuer. No harm has been done to the escaped lizard. Most lizards are able to contract a special muscle to cast off their tail painlessly. A new tail will grow in a few months.
There are some people that have a tough time finding a lizard, and we do know that the pet shop sells those lizards, and they're not as fast as the wild type of lizards that we have here. Usually the winners are ones that are found native to this area. There's several different techniques in catching a lizard, and one of the most popular now is they have actually built traps or buried a bucket or a can underground with it open under high lizard traffic areas, and the lizard will be walking through that area and get caught. And can you excuse me just a minute? I think we've got one. Great job, man. It's one of the whiptails too. It's gonna be one of the fast ones, man. Get ready. All right. Good job.
Y'all ready to rumble today? How many guys we got over here? We'll take 6 at a time. We're going to have a horn-toed race. We want the crowd to get into it, guys, have a little bit of fun.
It's post time.
They're off.
Let's give them some encouragement. All right.
Trainers may encourage their runners with feathers. Half the town has turned up to cheer them on their way. If any lizard eats other competitors, it's disqualified. Shoving is not approved of.
And first place of the world's greatest lizard race and a chance to go to Orlando, Florida, goes to Ryan Roberts from Lovington. Congratulations, Ryan. All right. Y'all stay there, guys. Let's get a picture here. If you can scoot back just a minute there, buddy.
In the everyday race for survival, lizards need good eyesight, especially the slower-moving kinds. They need to see danger coming. Sight also helps lizards to find their own food. The swiveling eyes of a chameleon are able to do double duty. One eye can spot prey, while the other looks out for predators. This Namib chameleon is tracking a beetle. The beetle will be lucky to escape now that its movement and direction have been spotted. Once the beetle stops, the chameleon refocuses. Left and right eyes converge to provide range-finding depth to the image. Target locked on. That tongue is 1.5 times the length of the chameleon. The bulbous end is very sticky, and strong muscles pull the tongue and captive back into the mouth. Accuracy, stealth, and long-range surprise in unique combination. And once it's chewing, the chameleon begins scanning for new game in the African bush. Arizona. Enter the horned toad. Well, it's a lizard, really. It feeds on ants, but only 2 species of them. Their formic acid is essential in its diet. The lizard's camouflage is perfect. It finds an ant's nest and sits there, invisible, eating its fill for weeks on end. The city of Tucson, Arizona is home to a growing population, which must deal with a special local problem: the Gila monster. This lizard's saliva is venomous, so its bite is to be avoided, and there's no antidote. In this environment, a new home may easily be built over a Gila monster burrow, especially since Gila monsters can remain hidden underground for up to 2 years. The fire department receives calls on a regular basis.
I think people call for Gila monsters in part because they're afraid of them. They know that they can be poisonous. A lot of times people call out of fear for their animals or for their children, but I don't think they pose an immediate threat. Normally they don't bite unless they're antagonized somehow.
Gila monsters are becoming rare animals. Rural Metro, this private fire company, relocates many of the 500 or so that turn up in the city's backyards every year.
All right, there you go.
Thanks. Have a good day.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Some get crushed by traffic. A few will even find their way back, to the homeowner's dismay.
We'll take him somewhere within the same area that we caught him, hopefully within the same square mile, and we'll let him go. We try and let them go somewhat away from homes, but still in a nice desert area where he can survive. If we take them further than a mile where we found them from, that their survivability dramatically decreases.
The salivating dragons on the Indonesian island of Komodo would be a much more dramatic surprise in your backyard. The people on Komodo have had close encounters, a few of them fatal. The lizard's copious saliva is not venomous, but can easily be the cause of an animal's death. A sudden burst of speed can sometimes get the dragon into striking distance, and all it will have to do is to slash at a leg with its very sharp teeth. The saliva will do the killing. The dragon plays a waiting game. Its saliva contains powerfully toxic bacteria. The injured deer collapses from the infection and will quickly die. The smell of death brings the dragons to a feast. The dragons share the kill and reinfect their own saliva with more bacteria. Komodo is a long way from the world of Henry Lizard Lover. Anxious that lizards should not make people nervous, Henry takes a stroll on the balmy streets of Los Angeles. But there is a hidden personal agenda to his lizard evangelism. He meets a few new friends when he and his reptiles are doing lunch.
I love getting all the women to meet the lizards and embrace the lizards, and then sooner